How's
How
things?
are you?
How's things, Ram? Yeah, we're good. How's things? You okay?
Life is good.
Well, what an absolute pleasure it is, Ramsey, to have you join us on our little show.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to come and chat with us.
Oh, of course. It's a pleasure indeed.
Is it loud enough?
How are you guys getting on over there? You doing okay in all this madness?
Well, there's so much snow. We haven't had a winter like this in 25, 30 years.
Yeah, really bad.
Yeah,
Well, just in February.
it's so much snow.
Yeah.
And then after the snow, then the temperature drops.
Yeah. Stay indoors, Ramsey. It's a lot safer to stay indoors, I think, right now.
That's exactly what I'm doing. Staying indoors with my wife and my piano.
That's a good deal.
Heating up full.
Yeah. You've been doing a lot of virtual concerts, Ramsey, is that right? A lot of virtual concerts recently. Have you been keeping very busy with those?
Yes. And what's great is I get to play the concerts in my living room. I don't have to go to the airport and check into a hotel.
Yeah.
I like that positive attitude.
Right.
No, that's a fair point. Yeah, you don't have to worry about overly sound engineers and people setting things up. You're comfortable in your own piano, Ramsey. You can just play away in the house.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Do you know the way it started? I was playing the piano. I love the piano, okay?
Yeah.
And so I'm playing the piano, and I'm trying to think of this song that I used to play with the trio years ago by Russ Freeman. He did it on Chet Baker album with strings.
Right.
And I was trying to remember, and I kept messing around till finally I got the whole thing down. And I was so pleased I played it through.
Yeah.
And then it took me about 20 minutes to a half hour to get the whole thing down.
Yeah.
And then after I got through, who should be standing 4 or 5 feet from me with her cell phone on is my wife. And she said, the song is so beautiful, I had to come out and just tape it.
Oh.
And I said, oh, well, yeah, I like it too. So she sent it to my manager, Brett.
Right.
And then Brett said, oh, that's a great song. So what do you do? I said, yeah, I sit here in my piano. I have a great Steinway.
Yeah.
In my living room. And I sit here every day for an hour to 2-3 hours, some days more. And I just love to play the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And so Brett, being a manager,
I've seen potential.
yeah, he saw the potential, and he says, what if you didn't have to leave your living room?
Yep.
And you just played for an hour, and we could make something nice happen.
Yeah.
Said,
like I do that anyway.
Huh?
You're like, I do that anyway.
Yeah, I do that right. I do that anyway. So I thought it was a great idea. And lo and behold, I'm doing what I love in my living room for an hour, the last Saturday of every month, 1 o'clock Chicago time.
Yep.
And we're getting all kinds of great response.
Yeah.
And the other thing that pleases me a lot is it's cost $20 to see it. But most of that money we're giving to the Jazz Association of America, which in turn gives it to jazz musicians who are not doing so well for medicine, prescriptions, or food or whatever.
Yeah, it's a great cause. Where can people go, Ramsey, to support that? Where can they go to learn more? Where can the viewers find out more?
Yeah, I know you're going to ask me that, Jan.
You speak to
Come
Brett.
here, please. Yeah, I'm the piano player in the house.
Yeah, you're not a website designer.
Just ask me where do they go to see the?
Oh, you can go to his website, RamseyLewis.com.
RamseyLewis.com.
Yeah, and then there's I think it's on the main page, and there's a link to stage it, and you click on that, and then you can get a ticket from there.
Brilliant.
Awesome. So we'll post a link on under this video down here.
Check out, guys.
Great.
Yeah, it's incredible how much the virtual concerts have just brought so many people together through these hard times, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that these concerts that I was just doing anyway are now entertaining people from all around the world.
Yeah.
And people are enjoying them. So it's very, very gratifying.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's great that people get that kind of intimate experience as well. You know, like you are playing in your living room. It's almost like being able to sit there with you in your living room and just listen to you play.
Yeah. That's what that. I mean, I was going to do it. I do it anyway. So people are just sitting there with me, and I'm doing something good for other people too. That makes me feel good.
Brilliant. I'm very jealous, Ramsey. You mentioned the Steinway, and I just have this little keyboard over here. I'm very jealous right now. This doesn't seem to cut it.
But you know, I when I was traveling, and maybe many years ago when the Fender Rhodes first came out.
Yeah.
And then after that, the keyboards started coming out. I not only had the Steinway piano on the stage by me, but I had a Fender Rhodes by me.
Brilliant.
And I had a synthesizer.
Yeah.
By me, and the Fender Rhodes and the synthesizer took up so much of my time that I decided to hire somebody to play those two instruments, and I would stick with the Steinway. The Steinway is my love.
Yeah.
My wife's my first love. Oops, I hope she didn't hear that.
She knows, Ramsey. She knows too well. Don't worry.
Yeah, I hope so.
Brilliant. You're talking about synthesizers as well, Ramsey. You really embraced the synthesizers as well, didn't you? Was there some of your favorite synthesizers? What was your go-to synths?
You know, the last time I played a synthesizer was so long ago. Yeah. I don't remember the brand name.
Yeah, it's been a while. Steinway.
Yeah.
Just stick to the Steinway.
Yeah. I only experimented with one or two over maybe a year and a half, and finally I decided I wasn't getting as much pleasure out of the synthesizer, because you know, synthesizers, I don't know about now, but back in the day, not every year, but every so often they came out with a new one. You know, they were coming out with them so often.
Yeah,
and then you got to learn. Yeah, and you got to learn which switches. I'm looking at yours now, your keyboard there. Yeah. And you got to learn which switches to push and pull and push and pull and this and that.
All only uses two of those buttons.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
One finger.
I'm so used to just sitting at the Steinway and making things happen the way I want them to happen, rather than having to go push and pull and push and whatever.
Yeah.
So life was much better for me on the bandstand when I hired somebody to take care of the keyboards, and all I needed to do was stay at my second love, which is the Steinway.
Yeah. How did you learn piano then, Ramsey? Because over the past couple of years, I've been trying to learn the basics, and I'm not going to lie, I've almost thrown this out the window on a few occasions out of pure frustration of trying to learn. But how did you learn, and what age were you when you learned?
Well, I was shooting marbles in the floor at 4 years old.
Right.
And I heard my parents tell my older sister, who was then about 7 or 8, Lucille, you're going to go take piano lessons. And I had learned that if Lucille was going to go do something, I wanted to go too, because usually it was fun to do. So I said, I want to go. And my parents said, no, we can only afford one person. And so, no, you can't go. And I made so much fuss that finally they said, okay, you can go. And so the church organist taught piano. She also played piano, and she taught piano. And so she was giving lessons.
Right.
So she gave lessons to Lucille and I. And after about, I don't know how many months or almost a year, she told my parents, well, Lucille, I'm sure has talent elsewhere.
Right.
But little Ramsey, he's got talent. I think he should stick with it. and that's the worst thing I could have heard, because I didn't like the practice.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't like that part of it.
Yeah.
But my parents said, okay, they say that you've got something, so now you're going to practice. And that happened. And so for about maybe 8, 9, I was 4 years old when that started. When I was 12 years old, she told my parents, I've taught him all I can teach him. Right. So I suggest you take him downtown Chicago Musical College.
Yeah.
And they can give private lessons to youngsters. And that's when I met Dorothy Mendelson. And Dorothy Mendelson is the piano teacher who got me into Bach and Beethoven and Chopin, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And then she taught me all the classics. And she said, you must practice. And one of the things that I still hear her in my head, she says, but you must always make the piano sing. Ramsey, make the piano sing. And she was about 4'10". I mean, she was a little lady.
Right.
And she said, get up, get up. I hear her in my head right now. Get up, get up. And she played whatever it was. And the piano sounds so beautiful. On the other hand, I'd be playing some Beethoven or something. And it was a crescendo and it was big. And make it roar, make it roar, make it roar. And she says, get up, get up. And this little lady would sit down to this big Steinway and make the piano want to run out of the room. I mean, and so I fell in love with the piano at that point.
Yeah.
And then she also was instrumental in my career because later on, when I was 15 years old, one of the other musicians had a dance band.
Right.
And his name was Wallace Burton. And he heard me play gospel music, church, black church gospel music.
Yeah.
And classical music. And he says, I want you to play with our band. Well, I hadn't played any jazz, but he thought that I could play anything because he heard me play gospel.
Yeah.
And classical. So all he said was, meet me at the Union Park Field House because there's a dance we're playing for. He had a 7-piece band, and the piano player had been picked up by Sarah Vaughan. Now that should have been a signal to me that their piano player was good enough for Sarah Vaughan to take him. Maybe I'm not the guy, but I said, okay, I'll go. And I went. And so we got there. I sat down at the piano, 7-piece band, three horns, guitar, bass, drums, and piano.
Yep.
And he said, okay, we're going to start with something easy. Let's play a ballad. And he must have named 3 or 4 ballads. I didn't know any ballad. I didn't know anything except Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, and gospel music.
Yeah.
And so finally he said, Ramsey, you sit out and we'll play without piano. Right. And I'll take you home, because I was young enough at that point where my parents says, okay, Wallace, you can take him to play with you, but you got to drive him back home. And so on the way home, driving me home, Wallace Burton said, if you want to learn this music we call jazz, if you want to come over to my house, I'll show you a few things. Right. And that's when he got me interested. And I really fell in love with this music we call jazz. And also back in this day, am I talking too much?
No, I'm mesmerized. I'm mesmerized here. I'm loving the history.
Also in those days, I don't know, in Europe or in Scotland or England.
Scotland.
Yeah, it was Scotland.
Scotland. Did they have in the record shops, they had booths that you could take the LPs.
Yeah, I think they did.
And they had demo LPs. You could take them in there and listen, and you could say, "Yeah, I like it. No, I don't like it."
Yep.
So he said, "Go up to the record shop and pull out some George Shearing, pull out some Earl Garner, some Bud Powell, and this and that, and listen to how they play some of the songs that we play, and just listen to how they do it." And I did it, and I was, of course, blown away by the way they played. But that opened my eyes and ears to what's up.
Yeah.
So things kept progressing until it got to the point where in classical music, things were getting very good.
Yeah.
And the gospel music was working, and jazz was working.
Yeah.
And my parents,
Chicago was a real hub for it all, wasn't it? The Chicago kind of jazz scene, wasn't it? It seemed to be a real what a revolution for music then.
Yeah, what was great about Chicago is Chicago is very open-minded.
Yeah.
Chicago is not very critical.
Yep.
You know, sometimes maybe New York, people kind of sit back and they say, and sometimes they get a little critical or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But in Chicago, they allow you to express yourself, and they're out to have just a good time.
Yep.
And so it was great playing in Chicago.
Yeah, what was like the 1950s Chicago kind of jazz scene like, Ramsey? Can you sum that up in a couple of sentences? I don't know. What was Chicago like then when you were out on the jazz circuit then?
In the 50s, there were maybe 100 or 200 jazz clubs.
Wow.
In Chicago.
Right.
Maybe 50, 35, 40 on the north side, 35, 40 on the west side,
right.
35 or so, 30 on the south side. But then downtown Chicago, where all the big department stores and the big restaurants and bars and nightclubs, there was jazz down there.
Yeah,
so jazz was everywhere in the 50s.
Yep.
And people loved to dance to jazz in those days. Not only listen, but jazz, but dance.
Yep. Is that what inspired you to start the trio then? To start the Ramsey Lewis trio and that then, and try and make your own kind of mark on the scene around that time?
No, what happened? The Korean War broke the group up. The drummer and Red Holt had to go join the army.
Right. Wow.
And it was yet left up to me and LD. We stayed together. And we hired another drummer until Red got out. And when Red got out of the army, he came back. And that was the beginning of the trio.
Okay.
And we stayed together, and that's how the trio got started.
Ah, right.
It's 2:00.
Am I right in saying that you've recorded around about 80 albums?
Well, I only recorded about 60. The other 20 are, well, actually, the other 20 are but the compilations, the best of and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
But, 60 albums, and I retired about 4 or 5 years ago. So 60 albums over 50 years, 60 years.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that is.
Well,
we were chatting about this before you came on there, and I think your first album came out in 1956. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was in the early 50s, 55, 56. And we were putting out 2 albums a year until the early 60s, until we noticed, or maybe whenever the Beatles came out in the 60s, and we noticed that these groups were only putting out 1 album a year. So that's when we started putting out 1 album a year.
All right. Because I think the Chicago, the jazz and the blues scene influenced Britain massively. I think in Chicago, I think with the Rolling Stones and the likes of Eric Clapton, and I think what we were watching, what you guys were up to over there, inspired Britain massively, didn't it? For the British invasion, I think, that came after it.
Yeah, those guys would come to Chicago just to check out the blues and jazz scene, because there are lots of blues.
Yeah.
There were not only jazz clubs, but you could go to some clubs and there was nothing but the blues.
Yeah.
In Chicago, that was, Chicago's still like that, except there's no more clubs as we know it. But back in those days, there was the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, there was the ballet, the Chicago, and there was this and that.
Right.
And there were jazz clubs, there were blues clubs.
Yeah.
There was all kinds of music. And what the other thing is, and I'm repeating myself, is Chicago has never been a super critical audience.
Yeah.
Yes, the worst they could say is, maybe you guys ought to practice a little more or something, but they would never they would never get down on you. So they were always encouraging. And Chicago is a great place. And you're right, a lot of rock and roll and groups from around the world would come to Chicago just to check out the scene.
Yeah, definitely. And even now, even through to the house music movement in Chicago, and it always seems to have some inventive music. Chicago always seems to do really, really well.
Yeah, how do you know about house music?
We love house music. Me and John were brought up in house music. To be fair, that's probably more our thing, to be fair, isn't it, John?
Yeah, we do like a bit of house music.
Yeah, yeah. And that took the world by storm, just like jazz, I think, didn't it? House music's like the modern day jazz, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I just think it's yeah, it's fascinating because there's such a revival and such love for that music again, jazz funk, even the disco stuff. I don't know if it's the internet that's created this kind of new hype to a certain extent, but there's a real a new audience coming through that have never learned much about it before. So me and John try and create the show to try and educate ourselves more than anything, to be fair, but also help educate other people who are just learning more about the music. It fascinates us to no end.
Yeah, well, it's a great music to know about.
Yeah, yeah. And hopefully one day, if I can play piano maybe an eighth as good as you one day, Ramsey, I'll be happy. All right.
Oh, I'm sure you could.
Maybe a 16.
I'm sure you could show me a thing or two.
I don't. I'm not even going to try. Brilliant. But as it progressed into the 70s and that, the Ramsey, it was more of probably the disco, the jazz funk kind of stuff. And obviously you worked a lot with Maurice White, with the Earth, Wind and Fire guys, and that was a really magical time. I think the 70s was just what a magical time that was for music.
Yeah, it broadened itself because, as you know, Maurice White played drums in one of my trios.
Yeah,
and then he left and formed Earth, Wind and Fire.
Did Maurice start with you then, Ramsey? Was that his?
No. Maurice was the third drummer.
All right.
In my trios.
Right. Was that his first kind of introduction to playing live music then? Was that Maurice really young and just inspired to do his own thing after that?
Well, what happened, we were playing around and one day Maurice said, hey, Ramsey, he's very soft-spoken. Yeah. You won't believe this. He's a very soft-spoken guy. I mean, when you see Earth, Wind and Fire on stage with all the costumes and dancing and
yeah.
If you ever talk to Maurice White, of course he's passed on now, God bless his soul.
Yeah.
Very, very soft-spoken guy. And he says,
saved his energy.
Ramsey, one day I'm gonna form my own group.
Wow.
I said, oh yeah, Maurice. He said, yeah, you're gonna have a trio or a quintet, or he says, oh no. I'm going to have a band, and then we're going to have dancing, and we're going to have uniforms, we're going to have horns and this, and they went on and on. So I said, Maurice, take an aspirin, go lay down. Are you kidding? He says, no, man, I'm going to do that.
Wow.
And not too long after that, he says, well, Ramsey, I'm going to leave the group in about 8 months. So I just give you time so you can get another drummer.
Right.
I'm going to form my group. The first group he formed was called the Salty Peppers.
Right.
And of course, after that, he formed Earth, Wind and Fire.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me one day. I was playing in Washington, D.C. He was playing in New York. And he says, Ramsey, I've got this song, and it's going to be bigger than the in crowd. I said, Maurice, come on. How's it going to be bigger than the in crowd? And he said, well, I'll show it to you. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm in Washington now, but I'll be going back to Chicago in a couple of days. He said, well, we're in New York. They had just sold out Madison Square Garden. Excuse me. And he and Philip Bailey and Donald Myrick and a couple of other Earth, Wind and Fire guys met us in Chicago. And we spent about 3 days on this song. It's a good story. We spent about 3 days on this song. And after the third day, he says, okay, that's it. And you got it. And he said, oh, before we go, everybody's about to pack up. I said, what are you going to name it? He says, the name of the song is Hot Dog It. I said, Hot Dog It. Okay. He says, we got this other song. And it just has a nice 16-bar melody, but there's no more to it. So what we'll do is play the melody, and then Donald Myrick will take a saxophone solo. We'll play the melody again, and then you take a solo, and we'll play the melody again. It's just a nice, easy going. It's an album song. It won't sell the Hot Dog. It's going to sell the album.
Yeah.
So we spent that time in the studio and 3 days on Hot Dog It, less than 4 or 5 hours on this other song. So I said, what are you going to call this other song?
Yeah.
He just call it Sun Goddess. Yeah, call it Sun Goddess. Yeah, right. And it's just an album song anyway. Well, lo and behold,
Yep.
you know what happened. The album came out and did very, very, very well.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic album. That even that hot dog, I actually had it on in the car on the drive home tonight, having a listen to it as well. It's been a while since I've had it on, but that hot dog, it just with a lot of the Earth, Wind and Fire influence with you on the piano. It's a bit of magic, that album, I think, isn't it?
It was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
And Maurice, you know, to be such a quiet, soft-spoken guy.
Yeah.
When he's off stage.
Yeah.
But when he's on stage, he turns into this other person. Yeah. Energy, jumping, singing, dancing. He's a wonderful guy to know.
Yeah.
And I still miss him.
Yeah, what a guy. We've seen them a few years back. They came to Scotland actually on a tour, and we got the pleasure of seeing them. They were on after Nile Rodgers and Chic. It was a great night, I'll say that. But yeah, what an atmosphere with Earth, Wind and Fire when they're playing live. It's just something else, isn't it? So it must have been a real pleasure working with those guys as well.
Watching them? Are you kidding? Sure. Indeed.
What was it like? What is the kind of process between with the writing of the records then, like that, Ramsey? How did you go about writing those? Was Maurice quite involved with the writing process, or would you put the basic kind of piano riffs down then, or how would you write a record like Sun Goddess?
I don't get the question. What did you say?
How did you guys? What was the approach to writing like an album and a record like Sun Goddess? Was it just a bit of like jamming, and did Maurice write a lot of it, or how did that come about then? Did you all just put in ideas?
No, Maurice and somebody else, one other person had that melody.
All right.
They had the melody.
Right.
And then Maurice thought it wasn't long enough for a song.
Yep.
That's why, if you notice, on the album, the solos are very long on the album because, you know, the song is that short.
Yeah, I just progress it out. No, it's a fantastic album, really is, and just like John says, 60 albums, but everything's just all your albums. They have a bit of magic about them. They all have their own unique sort of magic that seems to have progressed through the decades as well, didn't they? They seem to just always be at the forefront of what was happening at that time.
Well, I never thought about living off of my laurels. I never thought about trying to repeat any past success.
Yeah.
No matter how big or how small.
Yep.
I always like to live in the present moment and what I'm thinking about now and what feels good at the piano now.
Yep.
And so that kind of kept me in the present and looking for new things to do.
Yeah.
And not rely on something that I did a year ago that was successful and try to stay with that. That has never attracted me.
Yeah.
Trying to copy something that was successful for me.
Yep.
How do you keep finding that inspiration now that you've spent so long doing that? How do you like kind of go back and try and do something different now that you've been doing it for so long?
Well, it's all in. I started to say all in the air, but you're right. I've been doing it. I'll be 86 years old now to this year in May. And I try to stay open when I go to the piano. And I try not to think of what I played yesterday or last year or last month or what I thought was successful.
Yeah.
I just try to see what am I feeling right now as I sit down to the piano. And after I warm up with some scales and arpeggios and some Bach and some Beethoven and after I warm up with some stuff, then I just start playing and see what comes out.
Okay.
And it's just a wonderful feeling just to be totally creative in the moment. I think in the moment are three words that have worked really well for me in life in general.
Yeah.
Stay in the moment. You can't predict the future. and you can't relive the past.
Good
So you
advice.
might as well see what you can do with
Yeah.
this moment.
Look where it brought you, Ramsey, talking on Zoom to a couple of Scottish guys about the music. So yes, embrace new technology and new ideas then, eh?
I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
I think like look where it's brought you now, just living in the moment, and you're chatting on Zoom to a couple of guys in Scotland at this point. Probably wasn't what you expected tonight.
Well, there you go. There you go. You never know.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you have then for people, even like myself? Then, what would you advise for learning piano? Maybe pieces of music that you've always been your go-to music that would help you, like you say, warm up and stuff. Then, because it's very intimidating the amount of music that's out there, or the courses that are out there to try and learn. But what's your go-to music that you would say would be good for beginner level then to learn?
Well, you know, playing the keyboards, the electric keyboards is fine.
Yep.
But if you really want to get deep into music, I would get a piano.
A Steinway?
Well, yeah, if you can't afford a Steinway, just get 88 key piano.
Yep.
With 88 keys. And even if you need a teacher to start learning the basics, usually they start you out with Bach and Chopin, and exercise the scales and arpeggios and I'm looking at your fingers. You have long fingers.
Yep.
And it's a wonderful challenge, and it's gratifying. And you know the great thing about it, it's never too late.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because that's partly my worry. I wish I'd taken it up a lot younger. You know, I've always kind of dabbled in music production, but I wish I had stuck it out a little earlier. But I'm glad you say that, Ramsey. Wait
a minute. Wait. What do you mean a lot younger? Look at you. What, are you 80 years old? How old are you? What do you mean? A lot younger. You are young.
Still a puppy, Paul. Still a puppy.
Thanks, John. John's always there for a bit of support. Yeah, that's true. That's comforting. I like that. Thanks for the words of advice, Ramsey. I like that.
Well, so you've had quite an incredible career, Ramsey. Like you say, over 60 albums. I believe there's been 3 Grammys in there as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
So I believe you've had like over 60 albums and 3 Grammys as well. What's been like some of your best experiences over this journey then, would you say? Like your big highlights over the years?
Oh, highlights.
Yeah.
You see, that's exactly what I mean. There's some wonderful moments I've had. Maybe the first time I played Carnegie Hall,
Wow.
Maybe the first time I played the Hollywood Bowl.
Wow.
But I don't carry those things around with me.
Yep.
Because I like to stay in the moment. I don't like to look back and relive those things. But during that time, sure, when they introduce you at Carnegie Hall and you walk out on the stage, it's like you're in heaven. I mean, this is it. Or other places like that, or some big nightclub, or whatever. Or the first time you played a concert in a city in Europe or Japan or all around the world. Fortunately, my career has allowed me to travel and play everywhere in South America, Australia, Mexico, Japan. I played everywhere. And so the first time you play these places, it's invigorating because, it's, oh boy. And you become a tourist, you take out your camera and everything is new and then, but you move on, and that plays right into what I said before, is staying in the moment where you are now, what you're doing now, and put your best foot forward at that moment.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Good advice. I think I'm definitely more inspired now than I was before the conversation. I'm going to play the piano all night tonight after talking to you, Ramsey.
Good.
And
good for you.
No, you're an inspiration. It's an absolute pleasure having you on the show, just to chat and learn more about your story and where you came from and what inspired you really to go on that incredible journey that you've been on.
Thank you so much. It's good to talk with you all, both of you.
And it's the joys of technology, I think, isn't it, John? Technology, it connects everyone around the world now, I think, and so many more people can watch the show and learn.
Yeah. What time is it there?
So it is 8:20 in the evening over here. What time is it over your way?
2:20 in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. So what's the plans for this afternoon? Are you back on the piano again, Ramsey?
Yeah. I
Brilliant.
practice until my wife and I have a cocktail around 5:00, and then we have dinner, and there you go.
So you are living the dream right now.
I'm so jealous. Brilliant. No, we won't keep you too much longer, Ramsey. Thank you so much for taking time out to have a chat with us. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll chat to you again on the show soon. All right.
I'd like that. Please stay in touch with me and let me know how your piano is coming along.
Brilliant.
Let me know how when you get the piano with the 88 keys, and let me know how you're doing. Stay in touch.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Ramsey. Take care. Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.